Everybody in this room can become a generative AI leader. What do I mean by that? In the broad sense, you can all become leaders within your community. You heard this morning how to build community and how to become a part of a community. Within every community that you belong to, you can become a generative AI leader. That's the big sense. So if you're a developer, you need to learn tools. You can't just listen to hype. You need to dig in and write code and build things. That's how you separate hype from reality. And we have a lot of builders here. We're talking to you about how to use tools and how to build things. That's what developers do. If you are a project manager, if you're an executive, you need to have a basic fundamental understanding of generative AI so that you can communicate with your colleagues, so that you can build a corporate strategy in your company. Basically, everybody needs to know what generative AI is because it is a revolution that we're seeing unfold before us. You all need to know about this. So in the more narrow sense, what I mean is generative AI leader, meaning that you get a Google certification that says, hey, I am a Gen AI leader, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about today mostly. But I don't want you to forget that larger picture that you're a leader within your community. And you can, after you become that leader, you show other people how to level up, so to speak. They can become leaders in their community. So this is something that we need to spread around. In a more narrow sense, I'm going to tell you how to become a generative AI leader by getting the certification. So I'm your host, Norbert Kremer. I am an organizer at GDG Boston. We had our DevFest about 2 weeks ago. And I'm also a Google Developer Expert in data and cloud. And quite a few of the speakers here today are in the GDE program, so you may know what that is. As I've passed the papers around, the reason I show this slide at the beginning is because you can work on the steps that are on that form. So you need a personal Gmail account. You can set up a Google Skills account, which was until last week called Skills Boost. So there's a lot of renaming and rebranding going on here. But the form has the 3 steps: personal Gmail, Google Skills, and then the third one is you fill a form to get into what's called a sharing group. I'll explain what that is, but it's basically giving you access to Google Skills for free that you would not otherwise have, okay? So that it's all good, it's all free. So please work on the steps on the form if you want to. Just a quick overview of the agenda. In this less than 1 hour session, we don't have time to get to the live demo. So number 6 is probably not going to happen, but I'll hopefully try to show you how to set it up on your own. We're going to talk first. What do I mean by generative AI leader? I already touched on that. I'm going to give you just a little idea of what generative AI is, foundation models and agents. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about the Google certification program and how this fits into it. Then we're going to go into Google Skills and other learning resources. So the idea here is to learn how to build things, and Google Skills is a great way to learn anything about Google Cloud and other things. If we get time, we'll go into the details of the certification exam. You won't be ready to do that for a while anyway, so if you don't get to that, if we don't get to that today, that's all right. You won't be missing too much. And as I said, we won't get to the live demo today. I'm going to set my alarm for 2:50 because we're supposed to finish at 2:45, but we're starting a little late. So I'll put it at 2:50. We'll see where we are at that time, and then we can wrap it up. A little bit more about me. I have a bunch of Google certs. The one that matters for today is called Generative AI Leader. That's called a foundational level exam, meaning it's pretty easy. And what I also want to say is that it gives you a lot of learning for a small effort. So it's a really important, it's foundational meaning easy, but it's also foundational meaning really important to build as a building block to build other things on top of. In particular, the pro level exams are much more difficult. They require much greater effort to learn the material, take the exam and all that. So I highly recommend that you start with this. I have other qualifications. I'm a Google authorized trainer. I'm a GDE here as mentioned. And I have some certs from another place where I teach is at the TDWI conferences. And they have, it's data management and also AI. They're moving into AI as well. So enough about that. So the main talk here is become a Gen AI leader, or as I call it, become a Gale. Everybody should become a Gale. Who should get this, right? I'm a complete newbie to Google Cloud. I'm just beginning to learn about cloud and AI and everything. Should I become a Gale? Well, yes, of course. I already have some pro-level certifications, like I'm a pro cloud architect. Do I need to bother getting this foundational knowledge? Yes. And why? Because this Gen AI Leader or Gale certification is very new, and it covers content that's not easily found anywhere else within the Google trainings, okay, because it's so new. Some of it is some of it's being infused into these exams as they revise them, but in the PCA exam, it wasn't there until now, till recently, and it's not in a very concentrated way. So I'm already a pro data engineer, same thing. You may have great cloud skills with BigQuery and data flow and data proc and all that stuff. You're not going to know Gen AI until you study it, okay, because it's so new and so different from what we've done before. So yes, I'm a pro machine learning engineer. This one's a little tricky because you would think, well, Gen AI should be part of machine learning engineer program at the pro level, right? Well, it wasn't a year and a half ago when I took this exam. It is now being infused into the MLE exam, but it wasn't there, and it still is in a fairly small dose because MLE covers a lot of things about Vertex AI and training models and all that theory of machine learning. That's really a little different from generative AI and how we use Gen AI. So again, yes, I'm already a GDE, a Google Developer Expert. Should I become a Gale? Yes. I'm a busy executive. I don't have time to study things. I'm making the case that you should become a Gale so that you can help set corporate strategy and that you can talk with Gen AI developers that are building agents in your company. So yes. And basically, I'm a human being on the planet Earth. Should I become a Gale? Yes, of course. So you get the point. It's good for everybody. I want to play a little clip here from, I don't know if this is working because it's blanked out on my screen. There is a video that Eric Next made a presentation at Google Next conference in 2017. And to paraphrase, he said, just get to the cloud now. There's no time to waste anymore. Just get to the cloud now. And he was obviously promoting people moving to Google Cloud, which is his company, right? But he was a CEO at the time. So it makes sense that he would say that. But today, if Eric Schmidt were here, what he would say is, just learn AI now. Just go there now. There's no time to waste anymore. And it's the same message, but a different world that we're in now. So, and here, I alluded to this already. The main point of the whole talk today is that the Gen AI Leader learning path, as I'll call it, gives you tremendous boost in knowledge for a very small effort. And that's why I think it's so important for everybody to do this. And a secondary point is, all the material is in one place in a compact area. It's easy to get to. And you could assemble it from other sources, but it would be much more work to do that than just go through the Google Skills learning path. Let's talk about Gen AI for a moment, foundation models and agents. And I want to make clear that there are what I call 3 worlds of Gen AI. So who's used a chatbot like ChatGPT, Gemini, Bard? Everybody, basically, right? So that's what I call consumer-facing application. So you don't need any training. You might need to brush up on your prompt engineering a little bit, but basically you can open a browser, call up your favorite chatbot, and just have that conversation. That's consumer-facing application. Now, the limitation of that is that the language model doesn't know anything about your company data or your internal databases or internal data stores. It's also not completely up to date because what is the P in GPT? It's generative pre-trained model, right? Pre-trained means happened at a point in time. Anything that happened later is not going to be part of the model. It can't have any knowledge of that. So to overcome these problems and also the hallucination problem that I think most of you know about, we can start building enterprise generative AI applications. And here I want to distinguish within enterprise. There are kind of the easier ones, which are things like, they're non-agentic really, they're not agents. So I call these RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where you now connect the LLM, give it access to your internal database or your internal document store. We do that through a process called vector embedding. That's what RAG is. That's the first level of enterprise Gen AI. And the things we can use that for are internal communications, like writing emails, summarizing documents, help me draft documents, and maybe some synthetic data gen, and maybe even code generation if you give it access to your GitHub repository and things like that. So we're beginning to open access to some parts of the enterprise data that's behind your firewall and up to date and timely, but we still haven't built an agent yet. So the third point, what's an agent? An agent is an autonomous system or an autonomous set of software that is goal-directed and has 3 main components. It has an LLM that is at the center of it and making decisions about tools, and it calls tools. You've heard maybe another talk this morning about MCP and tools, okay? And then the third part of an agent is that it has a reasoning loop. So those 3 things are what define an agent. So the goal, it's autonomous software that's goal-directed. It has an LLM, it has tools, and it has a reasoning loop. Those are the 3 parts of an agent. So let me repeat this. At the top, consumer-facing. Everybody knows how to do that. 2 and 3 are enterprise Gen AI apps, and with enterprise, I separate the simple ones, the non-agentic, like RAG, and then the fully agentic, which have autonomous, they can take actions autonomously. Okay, we don't have time in this talk to go deeper than that, but I want at least everybody to know this level, at this level. It's also very important at the, what we are asking the LLM to do is very different in these situations. In the top situation, we want the LLM to be the omniscient oracle of all information. And it can't be because it wasn't ever designed to be that. And that's why we have the hallucination problem, because the LLM is a statistical predictor of language. It's not an all-knowing thing that has knowledge about everything. So in the generative AI, particularly in agents, we back away from that goal. We don't expect the LLM to know everything or the foundation model to know everything. What we're asking the foundation model to do in an agent is a simpler task, is to reason in a loop and to think about which tools to call, and the tools will know exactly how to do the task that we're asking or solve the problem that we're giving the challenge. And you've heard some of that in the other talks today. So let's move on. Again, this is to repeat that distinction between just generative AI and agentic AI. And so on the top with the things like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, we're prompting and we're asking just a simple response and a single task. But we don't have reasoning, we don't have a reasoning loop, we don't have tools yet at that point. Not really. There's some overlap, but basically no. On the right side here, we have the agentic AI. You see it has LLM plus reasoning, and it makes a plan, and it has access to tools. Tools mean access to data, internal document store and databases. That's how I look at it, because I'm a database expert, right? So the tools can do a lot of other things as well, but that's one thing that they can do. The way we build these things in Google Cloud especially is we can deploy agents with low-code solutions. And in Google, these are the Google terms. I can see that I've already missed another recent rebranding that's happened in the last 2 weeks. Agent Space is now called Gemini Enterprise. Everybody probably still calls it Agent Space, but basically these are low-code solutions. So search agents, customer engagement suite. A Vertex AI is a RAG engine, is a pre-built RAG engine that you can just call in from Google. You don't have to do any building of your own RAG solution. But with that, it comes along with that, you take all their defaults and all the assumptions that they put in. So the rule is in cloud, always. If you take a pre-built solution, it's convenient and quick and helps you get started, but it doesn't give you the full control that you will get from coding your own solution. That's why we as developers always have to make that trade-off. We can do more complex things like we can use ADK, Agent Development Kit, or we can use LangChain, but that's a code-first approach. So here I'm just giving you the low-code approaches that are available within Google Cloud. This is particularly important for, let's say, small and medium businesses that are Google Cloud customers. Unless it's pretty expensive to do a lot of the custom code development that we talk about later, and that is being done very successfully in large companies. They're building their own agents from scratch. But these are really helpful for companies that have smaller IT staff or smaller data science teams. Okay, now Google also excels in the code-first approach, and we have here the Agent Development Kit, or ADK. And so here, again, I have repeating that same image from before. But what is ADK? Well, it's an open source project from Google. It was developed at Google and then contributed to the open source community. So ADK is open source. It's model agnostic. So you often will run it with a Gemini model, but you don't have to. You can choose other models as well. And it interoperates with agents that are built with other tools like LangChain and others. And so it's really, it was released earlier this spring at the, I think it was I/O conference, or it may have been Next. I forget which. I don't know if you remember, Roman, but it's only been around for maybe 6 to 8 months, right? And it's become very popular. And Google had a lot of workshops and presentations on how to use ADK. It's very popular and very powerful. And right now it's primarily Python-based. They're also going to release Java-based versions of that. So I highly recommend you look into the ADK. We don't have time to go into details on that today. I'm going to pivot now to the certification program. I've already mentioned that the one that I'm telling everybody to get here in this room is Generative AI Leader. That's one of 2 foundational level, meaning foundational level means that you can take the learning path. It's not highly technical, but I still recommend this one for all technical people just because it has so much information in a compact way And it's really important that pretty much everybody understand the Gen AI material. So I highly recommend that. When you're ready to go beyond foundational, there are some associate level ones. There's a particular one that I like. It's called Associate Data Practitioner. That's great. When we get into the pro level, it requires a more systematic approach. You're looking at probably about 150 to 200 hours worth of study time, and then you have to prep for the exam. So it's not a small undertaking. Before you start that, you should think, where am I going to get 200 hours of time? The most popular response for adults that have jobs and families and kids and things is, number one, delete all social media apps from your phone. That will give you like 1 to 2 hours a day back of your time, and you have to sacrifice whatever you're giving up on that side. But that's where, if you're going to do something that takes 200 hours and you want to do it in maybe 2 months, you've got to figure out where you're going to get that time. So for students, you have the same calculation because you're being pulled in many directions. You have a lot of options for what you're going to study. Which cloud certification? So there are 14, right? There are 9 pro, 3 associate, 2 foundational. Which one is right for you? Well, you're sitting in this room, so the answer is Generative AI Leader. And that's the one that I'm promoting in this talk, and that's the only one that we're going to talk about today. The others are great, but we don't have time to go into all of those. And so the page I'm showing you here is called the Google Cloud Certification homepage. I'll give you the slide deck later. It'll be a PDF with live links in it, so you can just click on. I've given you the links for everything that I talk about here today. You may have to dig into the notes, though. It's not on the slide itself. And so you go to that certification homepage, click on Gen AI Leader. Then you go, once you get to that homepage of that particular certification, you go over here and well, first of all, you look for the View Exam Guide to see if this is the right certification for you. I hope I've already convinced you that if you're in this room, you should be getting this one. So yes, you can skip that step. It's good for everybody. Then the next thing you want to do is train for the exam, the red box here, train for the exam. And if you click on that link on that page, and we'll come back to review sample questions later, but you first want to train and then review. Now for pro level, we recommend maybe you would take these sample questions first to do like a baseline assessment and see where you're weak or strong in different areas. But for the foundational level, you can skip that step because it doesn't really matter what your baseline foundation level is at going into this, because you're going to commit about 10 to 12 hours or 15 hours to this all told. And that's just not that big. You can't go too far wrong, in other words. So go right into train for the exam. And that brings us to Google Skills, which until 2 weeks ago was called Skills Boost. And before that, it was called Quick Labs some years ago. So it's been renamed. The current name is called Google Skills. If you see anywhere in my slides the word Skills Boost, you should read it as Google Skills. And I'm going to show you some other some other learning resources. So this just announces the new Google Skills name of Skills Boost, but it's more than just a renaming, okay? It now has 3,000 courses and labs, whereas before it had 950 to 1,000 activities. There are now 3,000 activities, and it covers Google Cloud, as it did before, but also Google DeepMind, Grow with Google, Google for Education. They have something called AI Bytes, which are like 10-minute videos that you can just learn one little quick topic about AI. It's all to make it easier to use, easier to get started, easier to consume in lots of different ways. But if you want to get a pro-level certification, it requires real work, and the pro-level stuff is still in the traditional Skills Boost. That would be in the Google Cloud section. But for today, let me go on to this Generative AI Leader. I'm just going to call it Gale from now on, okay? The Gale Cert has 5 courses within Google Skills. And I'm going to tell you what the 5 courses cover. But it's video lessons and document links and quizzes, but there are no labs, okay? There are no labs where you have to if you fire up a Google Skills lab, as you do for the more advanced learning paths, you're brought into an actual Google Cloud console. It's not a sandbox. It's not emulated fake version of Google Cloud. It's a real instance of a Google Cloud project. It's given to you for the duration of 1 hour to 2 hours. You use it to do the exercises of that lab. And when you're done, you say end lab, and it's all torn down for you. There's nothing for you to clean up. You don't have to worry that you're going to ever be charged for some resource that you left running, which is a big problem in the real cloud environments. And so it just works great. But this one has no labs at all. So it's really pretty. So you can start today. If you got the sheet that was going around, if you have a personal Gmail, you can sign up for Google Skills today, and you can start this learning path right now, okay? And there are no labs. If you do the step 3, which is to opt into the Google Forms, we're going to give you a bonus which unlocks 18 learning paths, not just the one here that I'm talking about, but 17 additional ones. And you can just go wild on those for, I think it's a year, up to a year. You have unlimited access to those 18 learning paths. And I'm going to tell you even other ways to get more free access to lab credits. So let's keep going. The 5 courses here, I don't go into details, but it starts out with Beyond the Chatbot. You know, we're all using chatbots, but lesson 1 of this is like, we're moving past chatbots. What else can we do with Gen AI? This is kind of that middle level of using Gen AI in the enterprise, but not yet building agents, okay? So it's step 2 of my 3 worlds diagram. And so we go up there, and what we're doing is we're building a ladder or stepping stones for you to go from the basics up to just touching the very beginning of what agents are. Remember what I said makes an agent? It's a foundational model, tools, and a reasoning loop. That's Google's definition of an agent. It's very important that you know Google's definition of an agent for the Gale exam, okay? If you know that, you'll answer like several questions just by knowing this diagram here, okay? There are maybe other definitions of an agent, but that's key from Google's perspective. So how do you get there? How do you get up to the 5th level? Well, you take these courses. Basically, it gives you examples of what you can do beyond the chatbot. It unlocks the foundational concepts. It goes into what LLMs are, how you interact with them, how do you prompt them. Then it goes into navigating the landscape, which is looking at all the tools that are available in Google Cloud for this. It then, in step 4, course 4, shows you how to transform your work. It shows you how to build these agents into the workflows in your company or in the business process. It brings you then in course 5, it brings you up to what I call the lowest level of agents, of understanding agents. But it doesn't give you deep knowledge of how to build agents. It just shows you how they could be used. And it doesn't answer the question of like, well, where do those agents come from? I'll tell you the answer. They can come from lots of places. Somebody else can build them. Somebody else in your company can build them. You can build your own. Or you can get the pre-built ones from Google, like the pre-built RAG solution that I mentioned a minute ago. Okay, so there are lots of ways to get agents. Course 5 here will bring you up to, it talks about search agents, customer engagement suite. Here I did rename it. It's called Gemini Enterprise now, formerly known as Agent Space. Those are the things that are discussed in course 5 of the Gale certification learning path. But there's still some lot left that you won't be learning, okay, just to be clear on this. And that includes, like, how do you build your own agents with ADK or LangChain? That's not discussed in this Gale certification. That's why it's a foundational level cert. You're not learning everything. You're spending 15 hours to learn the basics. When you want to go further, which is why we're giving you the free credits to go explore further beyond this, You then get into ADK, MCP, tooling, LangChain, and all the variations of LangChain. We have an expert up here that you can ask about that. And then also the InstaVibe and Agent Code Labs that Google Cloud Labs has been running is a really great place to learn about ADK and that. So let's talk about now the Google Skills Access. So if you sign up to step 2 of the paper that's circulating, you will get a Google Skills account that's free, and that gives you complete access starting right away to the Gale learning, the 5 courses that I just mentioned. Because there are no labs, you don't need credits because there are no labs. Okay. By joining today's event, you can opt into the sharing group, and that sharing group will give you, this detail is covered on the paper that's circulating around. That is the URL to the learning path for the Gale learning path. And then, I thought when I did it, it took me about 12 hours. I've heard from other people that it depends on your background. If you don't know too much about AI and you're going in cold, it could take you 15 to 20 hours, but it's about 2 days worth of work, right? So it's not a huge, heavy lift here. And something like, I said it was 10 to 15. I upped it a little bit to be a little conservative, so it's 15 to 20, I would say, at the most. Now, if you join the sharing group today, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, you have to opt into the form. On step 3 of the paper, you will just give me your email address in a Google form. If you opt into that, you will then get, it's actually 18, but the 9 that I'm showing you here are the primary ones, and I don't know exactly all of the 18 anymore because unfortunately the feature that let me discover that is presently broken in Google Cloud. So when they transition from Skills Boost to Google Skills, one of the features got, I think, left out, and there's a bug report filed on that, and they're working on a solution for that. But these I know for sure, and these are the AI-related courses. And when you get my slide deck, you'll be able to, these are all clickable links, so you'll be able to look at all those. So you can decide whatever's right for you. Now, there's also some other ones that are non-AI topics that you also will be made available to you as part of the sharing group. And these are computing foundations. I'm not sure that you need that if you're, for example, a student here and your curriculum probably includes some basics about cloud computing, so you may not need that, but and the same with cybersecurity. If you're not interested in that, just don't worry about it. But this is available. There's also about another 6 or so that include some important ones like Pro Cloud Architect, and I think Pro Machine Learning Engineer is in there, and I know Associate Data Practitioner is in there because I requested that they add that one, and they did it for me. And so I know that there are others that are important. I just don't have the exact list today. And of course, the way if you get into the sharing group and you want to try something, just enroll into that course and try starting a lab. It's either going to tell you one of 2 things. Yes, you're in for free, or it'll prompt you, that's going to cost you credits and you have to buy credits or something. If you ever get a prompt to buy any credits, just say no because you don't need to. And I'm going to give you even more ways to get free stuff here in a minute. I want to continue just wrapping up Gen AI learning resources from Code Labs. So Code Lab, there are 2 things in Google. There's Code Labs, and there's also something called CoLabs, C-O Labs, and CODE Labs. So they're 2 different things. Don't mix them up. I'm only talking about Code Labs today. These are basically GitHub repos of open source learning resources that you can step through on your own. They're pretty complicated, and they've been developed by Christina Lin and the DevRel team at Google. They call themselves the Google Cloud Labs when they present this. If you get a chance to go to any of these presentations, grab that chance because they are excellent presentations. This agent-verse stuff, it's just going to blow your mind. And so technically it's really good, but it's also just interesting and fascinating the way it's presented and put together at the end. So I highly recommend any of those. You can step through them on your own. That's going to be less fun, but it's compared to seeing them do it. But it's available for you. Another thing that's just starting up is that Kaggle is starting a 5-day AI agent intensive course with Google. That starts on November 10th through the 15th. It's several hours per day, Monday through Friday. So it's not a small commitment, but I don't know exactly what they're going to cover. I haven't gone through this one myself. Kaggle is owned by Google, just in case you didn't know that. So Kaggle is the one that sponsors the machine learning contests, and they've been doing that for a long time, and then Google eventually bought the whole company. And so now they're producing training materials as well. That is a live link. When you get the deck, you'll be able to click into that. You can just find it yourself as well. These program is another program from another part of the Google Cloud Labs, another team that's a little different from the other one I mentioned. This is called Accelerate AI with Cloud Run. So this is how you deploy your own agents into Cloud Run or Kubernetes, so GKE, which is the Kubernetes engine. And those are pretty similar. There's a lot of overlap there, but there's also something called Agent Engine, which is another alternative for. And this is when you've built your agent and you're ready to deploy it into production. You've got to figure out how you want to do that. So Cloud Run, GKE, Agent Space are three options for doing that, and this is focused on that. That's beyond, if you're just getting started with this Gale program that I'm recommending, this is beyond what you're able to do right now. So for future reference, they just had, this group has been touring around the country. They just had the one in New York City recently, and they're now going over to Europe, and I'm assuming they will come back and do another circle around the US. I'm getting warned that my time is running low, so does anyone know how much time I have left, actually?
It's 2:50, it's 10 minutes to the next session.
Theoretically?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll try to wrap as soon as I can. That's the resource there. You have non-Google resources. Basically there's dozens of vendors in the space. Everybody has training, and every data, AWS, Azure, every cloud provider has training of some kind. And lots of data platform vendors like Snowflake and Databricks also have their own training, because every data company is becoming an agent development company now as well. So there's a lot going on. This is a conference where I teach, actually, so I'll give myself a little plug there. Google Skills, let's get back to this, and we'll try to wrap this up. As I said, the stuff on top is free for anybody. If you sign up for Google Skills, as in step 2 on the paper, you will get, I believe you're supposed to get an instant 150 credit bonus just for signing up. That's a one-time only deal. If you also should get an invitation to become a cloud innovator. I think that's automatically extended to every new person that signs up. It's either called Cloud Innovator, or it's alternatively called Google Developer Program Standard Tier, standard meaning free. Either of those things gives you 35 credits per month forever. And 35 is a moderate amount. It's not, if you're binging and like really cramming for a pro level cert, it's not enough, but it's enough for like moderate use. So it's not bad. And then also free for today's event, you're going to be added to the sharing group for 6 months. It's either 6 months or 12 months. They keep extending things out, so it's at least 6 months. And another alternative that Alan used last night is called this $5 Cloud Console credit. We're not doing that today in this session, but that went pretty well last night, I think. For some people at least. A lot of people, I think, were able to use that. So taking the exam, this part I don't think I need to go into much. I can just go over. You would want to go back to that certification page, view the exam guide, and then review the sample questions. Do those 2 steps. The sample questions are, this is the exam itself. Again, a foundational level exam. It's not too difficult, frankly. It's 50 to 60 questions over 90 minutes. You cannot take a break, right? So have your bio break, sip some water before. Don't plan on getting up. You got to be there sitting 90 minutes. If you have to leave the room for whatever reason, you'll forfeit the exam and lose your exam fee. This is the sections that are covered on the Gale exam. You can read these by going back to that exam guide. This is taken directly from the exam guide. It gives you the 4 different areas, and they're each about 25 or 15 to 30% coverage of different areas. So you kind of know what to study for. Taking the exam, again, review the sample questions now. Here I would say, this is Norbert's unofficial advice. This is not from Google or anyone else other than me. For pro level, I want you to have on the sample questions, 80 to 85%, you're probably prepared. There's no guarantees here because every exam is different. I think there's a large pool of exam questions, so no 2 people get the same exam, I'm pretty sure. And also, it might be even dynamically changed during the exam. Okay, so if you answer poorly on some area, they may give you more questions on that area just to fine-tune exactly where you are. And so it's Google, right? They use all AI and ML everywhere, right? So why would they not use it in the exam-taking process? I don't know that's how it works, but what I do know is you do not get a score. You're just told pass or fail. You don't get a score, and there is no official cutoff score. So it's not like, I got to get a 70 like it is on an AWS exam. I got to get 70 or 75 or whatever it is. It doesn't work that way with Google. You just get a pass-fail indicator. And I'm saying for Roman, you have an opinion, 80 to 85 I think is pretty comfortable. Like I said, no guarantee, but you're probably prepped when you're at that level. You're not going to get 100% of them right, because some of them are hard questions, some trick questions. Okay. For the foundational level, you should just try for 90%. Because it's not that hard, right? And if you're going in with 90% on sample questions, you can be confident that you're going to do well on that exam. I don't know of any exception to that yet. So, I pulled out a few of the sample questions. I think we'll skip these for today. If we had more time, we typically, and when Roman and I run a lot of workshops, and we go through these questions, and we kind of show the strategy for figuring out the questions. And as long as we have it here, I can tell you, like, a lot of times what it is, if it's multiple choice and there are 4 answers, usually there are 2 answers that are like what I call the contenders for being the right answer. And those are like, it could be either one of those. Those are both plausible answers. The other 2, I call them distractors. They're just like they don't make sense, or they're just goofy answers, and they almost like they throw them. If you really don't know what you're doing, you might pick one of those, and maybe that's why Google puts them in there. It's like, if you pick that one, you're definitely not doing well here. But usually you can knock 2 of them out, and then you kind of like choosing between those last 2. And really what you have to do a lot of times is just, my strategy, again, my personal strategy is, I do not, I go through slowly the exam, and I pace myself so that I don't run out of time. And but I go through slowly and I try to get my final answer on the first try. You can mark it for review, but I almost never change my answer that I did the first time. The only exception would be that if I learned something during the exam, like a later question triggered a memory in my mind that said, oh, that's what they were getting at in the earlier question, and I should go back and answer that one differently. That would be the only time when I change my answer, because usually I'm not going to know anything in a half hour that I didn't know now that would make me answer differently. So I try to, and the other thing I do is, I'll talk about the proctoring in a minute, but I go to exam center usually. In exam center, they give you one piece of paper, a piece of paper and a pencil, blank paper and pencil. You're not allowed to bring anything else in, of course. What I do is, if there's 100 questions, I mark the time down every 10 questions, and I track my progress through just to make sure I don't run out of time. So that's like, same thing with an SAT test or whatever. If you leave stuff unanswered at the end, you can't possibly help yourself, right? So you shouldn't just guess wildly, but you also shouldn't leave anything unanswered. And so those are kind of like the two strategies for Google exams that we talk about a lot in our workshops. These are just more questions. I'm not going to go through these. There's a registration process here. You'll have the link. The exam fee for foundational level is $99. We can't give you vouchers, I'm sorry. Sometimes we've been able to give some vouchers in the past. We can't do that anymore. Some companies will pay. If you work for a company, you could ask them to pay for your exam fee. It's in their interest that you get trained, right? So maybe they'll do that. If you live near an exam center, I recommend going in person to the exam center. If anything goes wrong with the exam or there's a glitch in the presentation software, it's on them to fix it. If they cannot fix it, they have to reschedule you and refund your money and so forth. If you're doing it at home, I personally have had negative experience doing the remote proctoring at home. I've heard recently it's better, and the few people from 2-3 years ago said they had problems with it. I think it's better now because of the proctoring. What you have to do is you need to be in a completely empty room with no books or papers, and you have to scan around with your phone like this and show that your room is empty, and they monitor you with a camera the whole time that you're on it. And in my experience, when something didn't work, they were not very helpful. So I'm not a fan of the home proctoring, but I live 2 miles from my exam center. So I literally ride my bicycle over and take the exam, and I'm done. And so, up to you. Sorry?
Also have to be careful with what software you have on your machine.
Yeah, they have a special lockdown browser that you have to install. So the home thing, it was really good during COVID when it's like, I'm not going outside my house. That was great, but anyway, the thing is, if you live 50 miles from the exam center, I would try definitely at home. But for me, I live a couple miles away. And yeah, when you pass, celebrate, you're a Gale. You're now a Gen AI leader in the literal Google sense, and you should become a Gen AI leader in your community and then pass it on to others. So that's the main point. The live demo, we're not going to have time to do today. I had to rush through the last part, but I think you got enough of the idea, and when you get the slides, you'll be able to put the pieces together. I don't know how we're going to be able to get the slides to you. It'll be a message sent out to the participants. Who wants to opt into the sharing group? How many people have filled out the form and provided the email address? Anyone? Oh, I'm so sorry. That is something that I can fix right now. At least somebody tried. So just to reiterate, you do not need to be in the sharing group to start the Gale learning. You can start right now. But when you do get in, what will happen is you'll be added to the sharing group. The next time you log into Google Skills, you'll get an announcement that says you've been invited to join this thing. Click yes, you're accepted, and I will unlock the form here in a second. Okay, that form is unlocked now. So we'll collect those. I'll give you like an hour, and then we'll collect whatever comes through in an hour, and we'll push that out to the sharing group. And then when you log in, so please, before you fill the form, make sure you did step 2 though. Make sure you actually have a working Google Skills account before you opt into the sharing group. Because if you do it out of order, well, first of all, it won't work, and then you'll be confused, and then you'll have to contact me and send me an email, and we'll have to figure it out. But if you do it in order, it works fine. So Gmail, Cloud Skills, and then just pop that email onto the form. You'll be included, and then as I get updates about which, if you have questions about like which learning path beyond the Gale, if you didn't see it on my list and you want to participate in some of the others, let me know and I can try to find out if it's in or out of the sharing group. And at least you won't have to guess then. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.